Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 5. And Prahlad, the saintly son of Hiranyakashipu. Text number, well, we have two texts here, but I'm only going to read one text. Te tu ta goravat sarve tyaktva krida parichchada bala adushita diyo dvandva rame rite hitai. No, we'll keep on going. Paryupasata Rajendra Tanyasta Hridayekshana Tanaho Aha Kuruna Maitro Mahabhagavato Sura Tetu Tad Guna Tatu Tetu Tat Tad Goravat Sarve Tyaktva Krida Parichada Bala Adushita Diyo Dvanvarame Rite Hitai Paryupasata Rajendra Tanyasta Hridayekshana Taraha Kuruno Maitro Mahabhagavato Sura. Tati Dadgorava Sarve Taka Krida Parichada Bala Dushito Diyo Vanva Marite Hitai Paryupasata Rajendra Vivekshana Tanaha Karno Maitro Mahabhagavato Sura. Dami. Why don't you just choose? Go on. Well, you were just about to say something. Te tu tad goravat sarve Tyakva Krida Parishada Bala Dushita Duyo Anva Marid Mehitai Paryupasata Rajendra Tanyasta Hridayekshana Tanaha Karno Maitro Mahabhagavato Sura. Te, they, to, indeed, tat, goravat. From great respect for the words of Prahlad Maharaj due to his being a devotee. Sarve, all of them. Tyakta, having given up. Krida parichada, toys for playing. Bala, the boys. Adushita, Diya, whose intelligence was not as polluted as that of their forefathers. Their fathers, yeah. Dvandva, in duality. Arama, of those taking pleasure, the instructors, namely Shanda and Amaraka. Irita, by the instructions. Ihitai, and actions. Parupasita, sat down around. Raja Indra, O King Yudhishthira, tat, unto him. Nyasta, having given up. Hridaya, ikshana, their hearts and eyes. Tan, unto them. Aha, spoke. Karuna, very merciful. Maitra, a real friend. Mahabhagavata, a most exalted devotee. Asura, Prahlad Maharaj, although born of an Asura father. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. My dear King Yudhisthira, all the children were very much affectionate and respectful to Prahlad Maharaj. And because of their tender age, they are not so polluted by the instructions and actions of their teachers, who are attached to condemned duality and bodily comfort. Thus the boys surrounded Prahlad Maharaj, giving up their playthings, and sat down to hear him. Their hearts and eyes being fixed upon him, they looked at him with great earnestness. Prahlad Maharaj, although born in a demon family, was an exalted devotee, and he desired their welfare. Thus he began instructing them about the futility of materialistic life. Purport. The words Bala Adushita Diya indicates that the children, being of a tender age, were not as polluted by the materialistic life as their fathers. Prahlad Maharaj, therefore, taking advantage of the innocence of his class friends, began teaching them about the importance of spiritual life and the insignificance of materialistic life. Although the teachers Shanda and Amaraka were instructing all the boys in the materialistic life of religion, economic development, and sense gratification, the boys were not much polluted. Therefore, with great attention, they wanted to hear from Prahlad Maharaj about Krishna consciousness. In our Krishna consciousness movement, the Gurukul plays an extremely important part in our activities, because right from the childhood, the boys of the Gurukul are instructed about Krishna consciousness. Thus they become steady within the cores of their hearts, and there is very little possibility that they will be conquered by the modes of material nature when they are older. That's in the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 7th canto, 5th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, titled Prahlad Maharaj, the saintly son of Hiranyakashipu. Te tu tad gauravat sarve tyaksva krida parishada bala adushita diyo dvandvarame rite hitai parupasata rajendra tad tannasta hridayekshana Tanaha Karuna Maitro Mahabhagavato Sura. My dear King Yudhisthira, all the children were very much affectionate, respectful to Prahlad Maharaj. Because of their tender age, they are not so polluted by the instructions and actions of their teachers, who were attached to condemned duality and bodily comfort. Thus the boys surrounded Prahlad Maharaj, giving up their playthings, and sat down to hear him. Their hearts and eyes being fixed upon him, they looked at him with great earnestness. Prahlad Maharaj, although born in a demon family, was an exalted devotee, and he desired their welfare. Thus he began instructing them about the futility of materialistic life. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Saraswatundeve Gauravani Bacharane Nirvishesha Shinivadi Paskatyade Bacharane. Prahlad Maharaj is one of our Mahajans. Swayambhu, Narada, Shambhu, Kumara, Kapilo, Manu, Prahlado, Janako, Bhishmo, Vayar, Vyasakir, Vayam, Balir, Vyasaka, Vayam. So Prahlad Maharaj is one of our 12 Mahajans, and as we'll find out, he's going to instruct his schoolmates about how to become conscious of Krishna. And one of his first instructions, if not the first instruction, was that Kamar Acharat Pragya Dharman Bhagavatan Hiha Duralavam Murusha Janma Tadapya Duvam Arthadam. From the very beginning, the tender age of childhood, one should begin to learn about Krishna consciousness. Is that the first verse? Yeah. What's that? Yes. To practice the activities of devotional service, giving up all other engagements. The human form of life, although rarely achieved, has some value because in the human form of life, one can, even a slight amount of sincere devotional service can give one complete perfection. Now, we may wonder what happened to Gurukul. Did everyone graduate? Or it was just temporarily it came and gone like a comet. Actually, there's a history of the Gurukul, just like there's a history to our movement. It's not all bad, although we can, generally speaking, when we talk about the past, either we talk about it as completely good, the good old days, or the bad old days. I personally was involved in Gurukul in some way since even before it even began. Because I was temple president in Texas, in 3 temples in Texas, 2 of them twice. I was temple president twice in Dallas, twice once in Austin for a long period, 3 years or 4 years, and twice in Houston, Texas. And Dallas was the place where they began Gurukul, so I was there even at before it was an official Gurukul, we had the first students there and we were teaching them. And I was the temple president. And we had one house and there were like maybe 15 householders living in a house which was meant for one family. Typical Hare Krishna movement. Which would have been all right, except it was a little too crowded. And that was the beginning of Gurukul in the sense that there were teachers and there were a lot of children. Not so many men willing to do anything. A lot of ladies and children. And I was the temple president, so I was like the father. There was no sense gratification involved. It was just, fulfilling unlimited desires and needs. In any case, it got so big that the former temple president came back. We had switched positions. I was the temple president of Houston, and he was the temple president of Dallas. And he decided he wanted to take over my service in Houston, and we switched places. And then he decided he didn't like my temple in Houston. So he came back. And I became the treasurer. And then but he was a spendthrift. Spendthrift means you spend a lot of money, or the opposite. I mean, he just loved spending money we didn't have. And at that time, there were no credit cards. So I don't know where we didn't get the money. We didn't have the money. We had bills, and I was the treasurer. In any case, then he decided that he was going to buy this building on Gurley Street to start the first temple, the first Gurukul. I thought, there's no way he's going to be able to do that. He can't even pay the phone bill. Because his job, his service as a temple president was mostly be on the phone. talk to his wife or other people. And I was not only the treasurer, but I was the Sankirtan leader, because that was our only income. And at first, it was all right, because we had maybe 3 or 4 devotees going on book distribution, but then they all got married, and I was the only one left. And I couldn't possibly collect even the amount of money necessary to pay his phone bill, what to speak of eating and things like that. Pay the rent. In any case, he wrote to Prabhupada and said, there's this place, we found this place in Guruli Street. I think it would be a good idea if we can buy it. I think, well, Prabhupada probably will figure out that this person is financially irresponsible. He'll never say yes. But Prabhupada said, yes, great idea. And the BBT will supply, part of the money to finance it. So lo and behold, we're now in Guruli Street. And since beginning the first Gurukul there. Formerly it was a church, and the temple room was a basketball court. And Prabhupada came there a number of times. I didn't stay as the treasurer. First I became the treasurer, then I became the cook, the head cook, because I couldn't get along with the temple president, because he was so financially irresponsible that there's no way I was going to get involved. So anyhow, they made me the head cook, because they had to give me something. And guess who was my assistant cook? No, he wouldn't do anything. What's that? Yeah, Bir Krishna became my assistant cook. I learned a lot about cooking. I mean, that was my full-time occupation. And I did that for some time, and then Vishnu John Maharaj left Austin, so they needed a temple president there. So I went down to Austin, Texas. But I'd always come and visit Dallas, because Dallas and Austin were more or less like neighbors. And there I actually got a real Sankirtan party again, because we had so many devotees in Austin compared to Dallas. And they always wanted us to collect for them, which I wouldn't do, because we were just mostly distributing books. In any case, I always came up there, and regularly, practically every week, our Sankirtan party went up there. And Prabhupada came, I think he visited Dallas at least 5 times. So every time Prabhupada came, I spent a week or so with Prabhupada in Dallas. And because I was a temple president, therefore I could spend, Prabhupada, we could meet with Prabhupada regularly. Satsvarup Maharaj was there, so I'd have the darshans with Prabhupada and Satsvarup Maharaj. In any case, I saw how Gurukul developed, how much Prabhupada was attached to Gurukul. He constantly gave the teachers instructions. He didn't waste his time there. Of course, sometimes he came there because he was sick. Weather wasn't good in LA, so he came to Dallas. Not that the weather was that much better in Dallas either. In any case, Prabhupada spent some time there, and he installed the deities, and he instructed on Gurukul. I remember there's a picture of him, Dwarkadish, teaching him how to write his first letter. And it was there when Prabhupada installed Radha Kalachandri and all the drama that went behind that. In any case, Prabhupada was quite attached to it. But the question is, why did it not succeed? Well, it's probably the same reason why most of our projects didn't succeed, is because most of the devotees didn't understand. Well, first of all, the eldest devotee, the most senior devotee, the old man in the society, was 30 years old. We were wondering how he could possibly join at such a late age. His life was practically over. Why are the ladies laughing? That was I was 19 when I joined. I was kind of like middle age. And we had no idea what was going on. I mean, I was my major in college was psychology, and then I had another major, English, which left me with no knowledge whatsoever. I did study chess. I mean, I could play chess. I was also captain of my tennis team in school, but that didn't do me any good when I joined the movement. And I was also the captain of my debating team in school. But then when I joined the movement, when they figured out I was a debater, no one wanted to speak to me anymore. So that didn't work out either. Anyhow, we came there. We had absolutely no management skill. It was all learned by experience. No one had any experience in teachers. It was all learned by experience. That's cool. And in English, they call it the school of hard knocks. And although the teachers didn't get too many hard knocks, the students did. And I visited, and they had really little idea of what they were doing, although probably gave instructions. We have to remember there was no internet. There were practically no tape recorders. If someone had a tape recorder, it was pretty rare. I mean, as a temple president, we had a tape recorder, but one tape recorder for the whole temple. And we got Prabhupada's tapes from Golden Avatar. Once a week, we get a shipment of tapes in that Prabhupada. But, they didn't deal with Gurukul. And Prabhupada only, in terms of practical instructions on Gurukul, I don't even know if there was a tape. So either you got it the first time or you didn't get it. And devotees weren't so expert that they took notes or anything like that. So generally speaking, they had no training in the field. They had little instruction. You couldn't go on the internet to figure out what to do. They had no time to go to the library if they knew where the library was. And they just had to take care. At one time, there were like 120 children in a place where, you probably could have comfortably put maybe 10 children, 10 people. Now, the only living, and now not even it used to be, when I was the second time I was the temple president, there wasn't the Gurukul there anymore. And there was enough space for like 10 brahmacharis in the place where they put 120 children. 2 bathrooms, 2 showers. And the children didn't want to be there. The teachers didn't want to be there. The only people who wanted to be there were the cockroaches. We call them the flying dates. Because they were this big. Literally this big, and they had wings. And they fly around. So it was a formula, for difficulty at least. And they tried to keep it. And then on the other side, they didn't get any money. Prabhupada, the devotees, Prabhupada's fund to maintain Prabhupada, when I was at the temple, they asked us to send $40, I think, a month or something like that. And practically none of the temple presidents sent it in. So what to speak of paying their Gurukul fees? So there was hardly any money. There was no education. There was no way that they didn't have any idea exactly what Prabhupada said, how to train the children. So there was a variety of methodology. And of course, there were some problems that came up. And what's that? Some. I mean, Prabhupada, for instance, when I was there, Prabhupada talked about love the children and, make them happy, and you can control them with love. But I don't know how much love there was in anyone's heart in order to utilize, because love is, all right, you can love someone, but when you have 30 children screaming at you, all asking for different things, and you're maybe 20 years old, you have, $2 to spend on them. After a while, love, after you lose your patience, you may not have very much love to hand out to 30 different yelling children. In any case, things didn't work out the way Prabhupada had hoped that they'd work out. And what's that? Oh, I think probably around 5 years or something in Dallas. And then Texas they figured out that we weren't following all the rules for social distancing for the children. So they closed down the Gurukul. They made the rules more stringent, and then they had to move the Gurukul to India, which was not so much of an improvement. Vrindavan Gurukul, yes. That was even more difficult. Because in America you have food. I mean, I was spending some time in Vrindavan every year, twice a year. I was teaching at the VIHE. So we could see they were actually quite poor. They didn't have the finances. They didn't have the teachers. All the same problems in Dallas were there, except you didn't have any government regulations. What's that? No, they had that building. They had that one big. That was 100% improvement over the other. They had enough. They had enough room, more or less, but it wasn't heated. I mean, if you ever go to Vrindavan in the winter, January, especially January, when the bathrooms are colder, there's no heating in the room, and in the bathrooms it's twice as cold in the room. And then if you don't get proper food, I remember taking prasadam with the Gurukul students and looking at, there were things moving in the rice. It was protein. What's that? Active protein. I said, what is that? Oh, that's one of the bugs, we get a lot of. I can tell you all the complications that were going on, paying for the bill downtown in Lloyd Bazaar, for the BOGO bill, and because there wasn't the support, there wasn't the interest, there wasn't the support. It was the same thing. You had kids in Kali Yuga are more or less like pet, like nice things to play around with for a while till you get tired with it. At least they didn't kill the children. I mean, in terms of the parents. So they sent, and Prabhupada wanted them to go to the Gurukul, so they went. But anyhow, unless Prabhupada had started the Gurukul, it just would have been in our books. It never would have been outside, there would be no future for Gurukul because no one had any idea. And Prabhupada gave instructions accordingly, although I don't think the devotees even remembered. If they did hear the instructions, they couldn't remember them. And sometimes they couldn't figure out how to apply them. In any case, Gurukul went on like that. But here we find Prabhupada emphasizes it. So it's not like it was part of ISKCON's black history. And, maybe sometime in the next 10,000 years, there might be a Gurukul too that manifests itself out of the darkness. But actually, Prabhupada said it's an essential part of Krishna consciousness. Trying to educate people who join the society after, a certain amount of years of having materialistic association is very difficult to become Krishna conscious. I mean, when I grew up, it was comparatively innocent because, you can't imagine what it was like. Just like we hear about Vrindavan, what are the people doing there in Krishna Lila? Don't they get bored just herding cows? Isn't there something new that they need, that they want? So when I grew up, technology didn't really exist. there was television meant, and there was one television in the house, and it had three channels. One of them usually didn't work. And the other two, the most vicious, sensual program was Mickey Mouse Club. And other favorite ones were Rin Tin Tin. You know Rin Tin Tin? Remember Rin Tin Tin? He was a German Shepherd. And then Lassie was, came a little later. Yeah. Remember Rin Tin Tin? And then Gunga Din. Yeah. Vicious, yeah. Anyhow, that was the level of violence. You had, when they go bang, and the person falls over, So, and there is no, there was no pornography, because where would you get pornography from? You'd have to go to the newspaper. If you were 15 years old, they'd ask you for identification or something. They didn't generally sell such material, nor was it so prominent. So there was no pornography hardly. There was no intoxication, no drugs. It was, it's pretty innocent comparatively. Television was not very prominent. There was no news on the television. You had to turn on to the radio. And there was nothing very interesting. Yes. Divorce court. Right. Yeah, there were, in my neighborhood, there were only rumors of people getting divorced. It's like in Goloka Vrindavan, there are rumors of demons, but no one ever heard of any family that ever got divorced. So nowadays, I think things have changed a little bit. I remember sharing books in Chicago at the airport, and I, see this lady with her child, and I said, who's your husband? She looked at me, husband? I don't have a husband. I said, what? Because I wasn't, I was a devotee. We were kind of sheltered. I had no idea that, ladies wouldn't have husbands, but they just kind of kept on appearing everywhere. I didn't know what was going on. You ask the lady, who are you married to? And then she says, oh, she's over here. I mean, they're actually, like I'm doing this language program for Duolingo. It's free. But, you'd be surprised how many of the stories now, about men and women, men and men getting married or whatever, women and women getting married, just because they're brainwashing the children. So when people join our mood society later on, they have a lot of issues in their brains. It's not they're just innocent, and they've gone through everything. By the time you're 9 years old, you've experienced everything in life that someone 30 years old might have experienced. So Prabhupada Kumara Acharya, he wanted the children to go to Gurukul so they can preserve their intelligence and become Krishna conscious. And if they don't do that, if they join later, then they have to spend so much time trying to forget, spend the rest of their life, forget all the nonsense they were conditioned by. And it's only going to get worse. Now, for instance, with this coronavirus, in America at least, the children, they have they all have to wear a mask the whole day. So if they have no intelligence, they're probably going to get a lot less intelligence, breathing in carbon dioxide the whole day, no oxygen. And then they have to have all the desks have to be 6 feet apart. The bathrooms have to be, you can't have the same, they have to be separated in the bathroom. No cafeteria anymore. no gym, no play. Just sit with their mask on. 8 hours, it was 5 hours a day, I guess they have it. So the children, what are they going to do? They already don't go out and play anymore. They just sit home and kill things on the video game. And it's not exactly, stick figures. When they have a demon on the video game, it's a real demon. And when they kill the demon with their M15, the thing, the blood splashes everywhere. You see the bodily parts just flying in at you. You got to wipe it off. So, unless we actually establish Gurukul and educate children from the beginning, in the future it's going to be practically impossible or very, very difficult, in spite of the power of the holy name, to find people with any intelligence to actually become Krishna conscious, to be able to distribute it to others as Kali Yuga goes on. Therefore, it's not a done deal that Gurukul has disappeared. Just the question is that our society, whether it's farm projects or book distribution or Gurukul or the cultural revolution that Prabhupada envisioned, it's just a question of time how it has to be organized in such ways that they work synergistically. Gurukul can't be separated from everything else, because otherwise people won't see the value of it. You go through Gurukul, and by the time you're done, you can chant Sanskrit. You go to your first job interview, and you say, Denos Minita, and they say, what? Ita Dehe. Oh, where did you go to school? Oh, the Ljubljana Gurukul. Really? Never heard of it. Where did they teach you? Sanskrit. What else? Well, we studied Bhagavatam and Mahabharata. You heard Mahabharata. Maha what? Anyhow, when the robots take over, and the only thing you have to be you have to know how to program robots. That's the only way you can get a job. Our Gurukul students wouldn't be very much in demand. On the other hand, if we actually have a society where we have farm communities and we have a cultural revolution and there's art and music and everything else, plus we have educational facilities, then everyone can be engaged, and having a degree from Gurukul will actually be quite valuable in a Krishna conscious society. So that's what we have to do, is form the whole society. We will have multiple possibilities for engagements according to one's abilities and propensity. And then society will actually appreciate it. Because when part of it is maintaining of the body, the farm communities, the other is maintaining of the self, socially and otherwise, which is the Krishna consciousness movement. When people start realizing that the society is bankrupt, that they can't live life watching a movie, that, as we used to say, milk doesn't come from a carton in the store, and you can't eat the things that the factories produce. When they realize that, then our society will actually be seen as something valuable to the members and to the people on the outside. Right now, we don't see, because we're dependent so much on the outside community that we don't understand the value of educating our children in Krishna consciousness, the value of living a simple life, the value, et cetera, even the value of distributing Krishna consciousness to ourselves and others. But as we can see, as Kali Yuga goes on, that value will become, the value of that will become more and more prominent as things become, as materialistic society continues to fall apart, either by plan or by design or by reactions to the karma. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
I was listening to Bhutta Bhavana Prabhu from London. Once he talked about living in our society, let's say ISKCON, or living in a temple, that after when a person leaves, he should have like a diploma or something like that. That would be valuable in a society which is like expanded through the whole earth.
You mean materialistic society?
Materialistic society, yes. So, but at the same time, we don't have such a facility. Or do we? Maybe I don't know. That would provide such things. So maybe if a person lives, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years in a temple, then he goes out, he's like, maybe lost his time. So what do you suggest? What do you say about that? How
he lost his time in terms of what? You mean he didn't become Krishna conscious living in the temple? He was thinking about, for 15 years, he was thinking about going outside. He never learned the Guru Vastika prayers because he was too distracted. What do you mean wasting time?
Yeah, well, not in a spiritual sense, more like a material.
What do you think? So if you have a perfect materialistic life, perfect, everyone, when you die, they're going to make a big monument for you.
Yeah, no.
So that life well lived, not wasted, is when you die and they make a big monument for your dead body.
Yeah, if they make a statue.
You come back as a bird, make your contribution to the monument.
That's a concept.
What's that?
That's a concept.
Well, that's a reality. Unless we can understand we're eternal, everything we're doing here doesn't make any sense. We think I'm this body, then why am I working for eternity if I'm the body? The body's not going to last eternally. On the other hand, in terms of, we never heard of any devotee starving to death. We heard a lot of devotees dying from eating too much. We never heard of a devotee starving to death. So it's not that Krishna doesn't supply at least the minimum. Now, if you want some gorgeous arrangement after you leave the temple, then you're going to get a job with a national company, and you're going to become the CEO in 2 years. Then, you came to the wrong place. So we should be a little realistic. On the other hand, things can be improved a lot in terms of economic opportunities for those who are participating in the Hare Krishna movement. But that will depend upon proper, as Prabhupada said, intelligence and organization. On the other hand, you can get your PhD. When I went to college, some of my friends were PhDs, but they couldn't get a job. They were overeducated at that time. They were working in a steel mill, the Buffalo Steel Mill, which you didn't need a PhD for. But if you had a PhD, people wouldn't hire you because you were overeducated. So nowadays, people go to school, in America at least, they spend $50,000 a semester, and by the time they're done, they have a $500,000 debt, and they have to pay off a student loan, and they can't get a job. Because who cares? Everyone has a diploma. Everyone has a MS or a Bachelor of Science, everyone has it. They're unemployable. And so they have this huge loan, they can't they get a job as a dishwasher somewhere. And they're frustrated. I spent 4 years getting this degree, went into huge debt, and now I can't get a job. And if you read the newspapers, which I don't advise you to do, but you'll see how frustrated these people are rioting in America. They're all many of them are college students and postgraduates. So to think, well, this poor Hare Krishnas, they're not getting educated. Well, the poor people are going out to these schools and, going hugely into debt and getting so-called educated. You feel more sorry for them. Because if you're not in debt, you're starting out a lot more better than they are. Anything else? Yes.
So, as you were describing the Gurukula in the early days, nowadays we can see that the Gurukula's program improved quite a lot in comparison, we could say. But still there's just like 60 applicants or so.
Where?
In the Gurukul.
Which Gurukul?
In Mayapur.
Oh, in Mayapur. Oh, no, there's a lot of... I don't know what kind of Gurukul they have in Mayapur. You mean in Bhakti Vidya Purnamar, this place that he stays in?
I mean, as I understood, the Gurukul in Vrindavan isn't as much.
Yeah, it's hard to say what Gurukul. Generally, our Gurukuls are all a mixture of academics and something what Prabhupada said. So, how much is that? Is a real... most of our schools are not really Gurukuls. They're just, mostly academics with a little bit of Krishna consciousness thrown in. It's more or less like what used to be the church's schools, where they have all academics, and they throw in, one class on religion or something. So maybe that, we have in Avantipur in England, but, they chant a little bit and they may hear a little bit, and the rest is academics like everyone else. But if you spend your life hearing about Darwin and how we all evolved from monkeys and everything came out of nothing, you may have a better chance if you have a devotee teacher. They explain things a little bit different. But still, it's not the same thing. It's learning how Garbhodaksha Vishnu lies down in the Garbhodak ocean, and from his lotus flower, from his navel comes a Brahma. If you start from when you're 5 years old hearing about that, you believe it. There's nothing else, you have nothing to contradict it. So you actually believe it. And when you're, go to school and you hear how everything came out of nothing, you can believe that too. And then when you hear that there's a four-headed man who came out of a lotus flower, everything came from him, you think, wait a second. This doesn't make any sense. Maybe he came out of nothing also. So it becomes confusing. Anything else? Yes.
Okay, so my question is, you mentioned that, when you joined, the devotees didn't have skills for management and stuff. So I'm now thinking about this social point of view, because probably in studies, a person learns a lot of stuff, develops skills if the study is good. So this would, from this point of view, okay, I understand that the loans are a problem, but from this point of view, probably this would be a good base for further development of our.
Generally not.
Why not? That's my question.
Well, because there are different kinds of management. For instance, if I studied management for a long time since I've been a devotee. And also, I went to that GBC college for a year. But there's different types of management. There's management for nonprofits, religious organizations. There's management for corporate management. Corporate management is like academics. The difference between studying Bhagavatam and studying academics. They're both studying, but they're based upon two different principles. Management and corporate management is teach you how to make a profit. And sometimes you try and be nice to people to trick them into working harder. But your real interest is not the people, it's the profit. Now, actually, religious management is to develop character, to bring people from the lowest state of character to the highest. So it's a completely different, type of management. If you go to school and you learn corporate management, from what I've seen from our devotees who study corporate management, you just can't get out of your head. That's how you manage things. And it becomes a big conflict with people who are actually trying to develop character, because they don't run parallel with each other most of the time.
So where can then we, in general, learn not just management, but all those skills, like
how to,
just from trying, or?
No, it's there in the Bhagavatam. It's there in Bhagavad Gita, but we just have to apply it. We have to understand what it is. We have to make it easily. Leaders have to understand what it is. They have to be able to be communicated to everyone else so they can understand what the process is and how to apply it. And they have to apply it to every aspect of of what we're doing. Then we'll see it works. That's what we're trying to do here, believe it or not. That's what we've been working on for months now. To understand how to actually understand from our scriptures how to elevate our consciousness systematically and practically, and then how to make it easily understandable by anyone. So it's clear to everyone what we're doing, including ourselves and the outsiders, and then to apply it to every aspect of our management, of our social and practical life.
Okay. And about the applications, I have a feeling that there are so many different opinions about these, because the Bhagavatam is not so long for all the different.
There's only one opinion. It's Krishna's opinion.
How can we know what it is?
That's what we're doing. That's what our whole process is, to find out what Krishna's opinion is. Now, we may not know it, and even collectively, we may get together and try to understand it practically, and even we may get it wrong sometimes, but still we'll learn from experience. If we try, then Krishna will help us. Krishna is in our heart. He's the super soul. He's not like some dead stone who couldn't care less, or Krishna is schizophrenic. He has many different opinions. His opinion he has opinion in your heart, his opinion in my heart. He just can't get it together. He's confused himself. No, Krishna has a very clear opinion, and as we make advancement, everything will become clearer too.
So our movement will get better and better also, socially.
If we try to take shelter of Prabhupada and Krishna sincerely in a practical way, then it'll get better. And if we try to figure out from the Bhagavatam, we utilize Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, try and figure out how to satisfy our desires, then things will just will fall apart.
Okay, can I ask something? One more thing.
One more thing.
Sometimes
you have to pay for overtime, though.
I will. What about sometimes devotees mention that you got the knowledge from Prabhupada directly, but that with time this will not be so clear. People will have maybe some other motives, and they will, as you said.
You mean as time goes on, Prabhupada's instructions become less and less clear?
Yes, because of interpretations, I guess, and the devotees will write more books, and
so just make everything more and more vague and in other words, the devotees are writing the books specifically to make sure that Prabhupada's instructions become more and more vague and unclear.
I guess not in that way, but I don't know. I just have feeling that sometimes.
In other words, Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita 5,000 years ago, and as time went on, his instructions became less and less clear. Now we get Bhagavad Gita, we can't understand what he's talking about. No, the same instructions. We're not this body. We were 5,000 years ago. wherever we weren't that body, and wherever we are now, we're not this body. Same instructions. As far as how to apply them, that takes some intelligence, assimilation of the knowledge. So that takes realized devotees. So unless we develop a process of having advanced devotees, taking devotees from one level of consciousness to the highest level of consciousness, then our movement can't last. If in the process of becoming a devotee, you start out enthusiastic, and by the time, after 10 years, you're more morose than before you started, it's not going to work. The process should be we become more enthusiastic, more enlightened, not more confused. All right, thank you very much. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.